you guys ready for Michael? Michael!
As a teenager, I didn't have very good self-esteem. I tried to do what the popular kids did. I just wasn't very successful at it. One big example of this was for boys at that time, the hairstyle that was dominant was you would part your hair on one side and then comb the other over. And that didn't work for me. See, I had this really thick, wiry hair. So what would happen is this would be flat, and there'd be this giant puff that would be like this. Now, the annual photographer wanted to try to balance that, so he had me do a real severe angle and smile with this giant puff, and that's how I'm memorialized in my high school annual now. But, you know, by looks alone, you didn't want me on your sports team. But I had a chance because I knew that I had something that I was good at, and that was driving. As I got my learner's permit, I knew how to do a proper left turn. I could slow down to a stop sign, not too fast, but not a jarring brake either. I could even parallel park. So I knew I was ready for this. Passed the written part of the exam, no problem. And then, 16, I was ready for the driving test. Now, my older sister, Joby, took me and my twin sister, Martha, to get our driver's test on the same day. Before we went to the test, she took us out driving so we could get comfortable and confident driving her car, and we both did great. We were ready. Now, I got to go first, so I'm sitting in the driver's seat, and this big state trooper with a clipboard gets in the car, says, "Okay, back up." So turn on the ignition. I put the car in reverse. I check the rear view mirror. And just at that moment, there's a car on the street not too far away that comes zipping by. Well, that kind of unnerved me. So I stepped on the accelerator a little bit harder than I had wanted to. The car lurched backwards, and we heard a thud. Now, this was not a big, booming noise. It wasn't like the stop sign behind us went boing, 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 like in a Roadrunner cartoon. There was no damage to the bumper. There was no damage to the stop sign. But there was a thud. I did hit the stop sign. The trooper looked at me and said, "According to the rules, if you hit anything, then the test is over right then." We had traveled about 10 feet. I set a new record for both the shortest duration and the shortest length driven in failing a driver's exam. I looked at him and said, "Well, should I pull back into the parking place or just leave the car here?" He said, you can pull it up." So when we returned inside the office, my sisters were surprised to see me. We'd been gone about 2 minutes. But as soon as they looked at my face, they knew what had happened. Now, in Tennessee at this time, there were no pictures on the driver's licenses, and they had already started typing my license in. So they had this very subtle way of distinguishing those who had passed and those that hadn't. They took a big red stamp with the word "failed" and stamped it across the face of my driver's license. And I thought next they were going to stamp it across my actual face. But they didn't do that. But they did give me the license with the word "failed" as a souvenir of my experience. So next, my sister Martha took her driver's test, and she passed. And then my big sister Joby, I'll love her for this, she helped us create the most moral lie I've ever been involved with. She said, "Okay, here's what we're going to tell people at home. we went there. Martha went first, and she passed. And then the license office closed, so Michael couldn't go. And that really helped me save some face. But it was a really painful day. But you know what? I mean, as painful as that day was, I mean, eventually I got my license, and I went on and got multiple degrees, a doctorate, and even got married. And when that didn't turn out so well, did it again, and that one's much better. So gradually my self-esteem improved. And you know, I don't ever want to go back to teenage days, but I could use some of the hair. Thank you.